When you remove McIlroy from golfing history, it's surprising to see how much the old guard benefits. First, Woods, who finished second to McIlroy at the 2012 Honda Classic. This was a classic Tiger performance, as he shot a final round 62 to hunt down the young McIlroy. The North Irishman did just enough to hang on by 2 strokes, but if he never existed, then Woods would have gone into a playoff with Tom Gillis. So he likely gets the win, which would have separated him from Sam Snead as the most prolific winner in PGA Tour history. And the player who finished second to McIlroy more than anyone else? Phil Mickelson. He came second to McIlroy 3 times. He would have won 7 majors without McIlroy, as he finished second to him at the 2014 PGA Championship. Right now, he's tied with McIlroy on 6, but without his existence, Mickelson moves up to 7th in the major championship wins list. But let's be honest, it's not like Woods and Mickelson spend their days and nights thinking about how great they could have been without McIlroy. Woods didn't reach 83 wins for a variety of reasons. But there are players who would have achieved lifelong dreams if not for the 6-time major winner. First-time winners without Rory McIlroy. Let's start with Justin Rose. Rose's relationship with the Masters is agonizing. He's been incredible at Augusta, but has never won a green jacket, despite finishing second 3 times and third this year. But without McIlroy, he wins the Masters in 2025. He'd have stormed into the lead on Sunday with 10 birdies, snatching the win from Bryson DeChambeau. This would also have made Ludwig Aberg's collapse on the final 2 holes all the more shocking. And Rose isn't the only one who would have given anything to beat McIlroy at a major. Somehow, Ricky Fowler didn't win one in 2014, despite finishing in the top 5 at all 4 of them. The young superstar burst onto the scene and looked like the next big thing. But the biggest win of his career remains the Players' Championship in 2015. But he finished tied second to McIlroy at the 2014 Open Championship. Who knows what could have happened in his career if he gets the win at Royal Liverpool? And who was he tied with? Sergio Garcia, the nearly man of golf for 2 decades. Garcia suffered heartbreaking loss after heartbreaking loss in his career, and for a long time he was the best to never win a major. He came tied second to McIlroy by 2 strokes at the 2014 Open Championship, so he could have captured his first major 3 years before he eventually won the Masters. Also, a special shout-out goes to Englishman David Lynn. He had by far the best major finish of his career at the 2012 PGA Championship. He came second to McIlroy, who won by a mile. But if Rory never existed, then we would have had one of the most unlikely major winners in this sport's history. The PGA Tour collapses without Rory McIlroy. The PGA Tour collapses without Rory McIlroy. It might seem laughable now that the PGA Tour could have lost its battle to LIV Golf. But let's not underestimate the state that the tour was in when LIV was first launched. Fans thought the PGA Tour was trapped in its traditions but still overly commercial. The players felt underpaid. There's a reason that big stars jumped ship. But with the PGA Tour facing an existential threat, it was McIlroy who stood up and set up a front to LIV. He was the face of the tour, while the CEO Jay Monahan frankly floundered. Monahan's popularity went through the floor, so McIlroy was the front man, with the strength to step up on the podium every week to face a tidal wave of questions. Without McIlroy, who knows what could have happened? It's hard to imagine Scottie Scheffler or anyone else in the tour having the gravitas, or even the willingness to take on LIV in this way. More players likely jumped ship without the anchor, McIlroy, holding the fort, and LIV Golf would have posed a far greater threat to the PGA Tour than it did in reality. Add to that McIlroy's back-to-back Masters wins in 2025 and 2026, which were the hammer that drove the nail into the coffin, and we have so much to thank him for. Team Europe loses its talisman. Europe has dominated the Ryder Cup in recent years, but without McIlroy's existence, who knows if that would still be the case. The team would lose its soul. Since his debut in 2010, McIlroy has been the bridge between the golden generation of Garcia and Colin Montgomerie and the modern era. Without him, would Europe still have held the fort on home soil so effectively? McIlroy has competed in 8 Ryder Cups. In those events he has won 6, with a record of 19 wins, 14 losses and 5 ties. He was pivotal in Europe's road win at the Miracle of Medina, scoring 3 points and winning his singles match during a historic Sunday comeback. And he played the leading role at Bethpage Black last year, soaking up the full force of a hostile road crowd, spurring the team on, and earning 3.5 points in the process. Europe likely folds last year without McIlroy. And more importantly, it removes him from historic pairings. His partnership with Tommy Fleetwood is one of the greatest in the tournament's history, and set the tone in both 2023 and 2025 for Europe to dominate the team events. For the last 15 years, Rory has been the general of the European team room. He is the player that the younger generation grew up idolizing. Without him, Team Europe would have had to rely on a fading Ian Poulter and Garcia for much longer. When those players defected to LIV, the team would have been effectively rudderless. The reality is that without McIlroy, the Americans likely would have broken their away game curse long ago. He is the man that Team USA must go through, and they have never been able to across the pond. The Ryder Cup without McIlroy is a quieter, far less combustible and significantly less European-dominated affair. Europe wouldn't just be missing a golfer, they would be missing their identity. No one takes the torch from Tiger Woods. McIlroy was meant to be the next Woods, and maybe we haven't been fully appreciative of how much he has lived up to that role. Yes, he doesn't have 15 majors or 82 PGA Tour wins, but he has stepped into Woods' shoes as the face of golf. Without McIlroy, the PGA Tour would have lacked a charismatic superstar when Woods stepped away from the limelight. When Woods' dominance began to wane due to injuries and a personal scandal in 2010, the Tour was desperate for a successor who possessed the same gravitas. Without McIlroy, the early 2010s would have been dominated by a rotation of shortly lived world number ones like Luke Donald or Lee Westwood. While technically brilliant, they just lacked the star power that Woods provided. McIlroy's wins at the 2011 US Open and 2012 PGA Championship gave fans a reason to keep watching. He was the only player who played and behaved like a young Woods. Rory took the torch. Without him, the Tour would have felt increasingly cold and corporate. Why golf needed Rory McIlroy? In short, Woods built the house, but Rory kept the lights on. Without him, the PGA Tour would have just spent the last 15 years as a niche sport rather than growing into a global entertainment juggernaut. When we look back at the history of the game, it's easy to get caught up in the cold, hard numbers. We look at trophies, the major titles, the elusive green jacket that he finally secured in 2025. But as we've seen, the McIlroy effect goes far deeper than that. Without him, the record books would look totally different. Woods would stand alone at the top of the wins list, Mickelson would have another major, and Fowler might have had the career-defining moment that he always deserved. But the sport itself would be completely unrecognizable. Without McIlroy, the PGA Tour might have buckled under the weight of the LIV transition. The Ryder Cup could be a trophy that the Europeans haven't touched in a decade. And more importantly, the bridge that Woods built to the future would have just crumbled. McIlroy protected the soul of the game. He was the only person with the talent to be a superstar, and the courage to be a human being at the same time. He gave us a reason to care when Woods couldn't, and he gave the Tour a backbone when it needed one most. And in 2026, he stands at the absolute peak of his powers with a legacy that is finally complete, and we can say for certain that golf didn't just need its next Tiger. It needed Rory.